without further ado, let me introduce LeeAnn. LeeAnn Peniche, worldwide expert on so many things in the consulting world of orthodontics. I can tell you from personal experience, I have sent my treatment coordinator to her course, and our case acceptance was already really good. And the things she did to turn our practice into even something stronger was amazing. I know a lot of you are newer in practice, and though I've been practicing for 25 years as a dentist, I've only been an orthodontist for about 2.5. And so to be able to get her influence early in my orthodontic life, to get the nuances of the things that I just didn't know about orthodontics has been remarkable. So LeeAnn, first of all, thank you very much for what you've done for my practice.
Thank you.
And so tonight's format is going to be a Q&A between me and LeeAnn. You may recall that I asked for suggestions, and you guys gave great suggestions. And so we're going to go back and forth talking about these things, but that doesn't mean I don't want to hear from you folks. What it means is if you go to the side and see where the chat is, if you have a question for the last 15 or so minutes, we'll go to your questions, because I think we've got a lot of heavy lifting ahead of us with the things that you've asked for. And so just so you know, it says to me that it currently is recording. Give me 24 to 48 hours to upload this to our YouTube channel. And once I do, I will give you a link in the RD group about where to go for that video so that you can watch it with your team. I can tell you ahead of time that the information we're going to get tonight is going to be amazing, not just for you, but for your team members as well. So LeeAnn, is there anything you'd like to talk about or an introduction before we get started?
No, you did a great introduction. For those of you that are new to me, I've been in orthodontics since I was 17 years old. We've worked with about 3,000 offices around the country, and we love anything that's new, innovative. We were the company that launched Align technology in 1999 till 2006, and we work with Orometrics, launching the Sure Smile. We work with the Ortho Classic company and Tom Pitt's new bracket. So if there's something new out there, something trendy or edgy, I want to be part of it. I want to lead the way with it. And even when I started out in orthodontics, when the one-step exam came around, you know, that was, I was tarred and feathered for it initially, and it's mainstream. So now we're going far beyond that.
Awesome, awesome. So first, real quickly, is anybody here having trouble hearing LeeAnn or seeing LeeAnn? And if you are, please type it in the chat box so that I know. I don't suspect you are. I just want to be safe before we start. And I don't see anybody typing there, so that's good. You'll notice I've muted all of you except for LeeAnn. And if you don't see if you're muted, please mute yourself, because there's a lot of background noise we'll hear from time to time. And out of respect for her, it's nice to sort of keep it quiet. So LeeAnn, the first question I want to ask you is, one of the members wrote that they would love to hear about effective scripting and examples, and in what situations do you recommend having scripts? Because as she wrote, as a new office, each phone call, each consult, and each correspondence is so important. So again, summing up, where do you recommend scripting? And is there any scripting you want to share at all?
Well, first, you should have scripting for the new patient phone call. And we teach scripting. I mean, if you had to think of the #1 thing that we're known for, it's the new patient process and scripting. What I tell everyone is we give you the words and then you find your own voice. As long as your staff knows the why behind what they're saying, then they'll find their own voice. They'll be true to their words and true to your practice. But the new patient phone call, that's where you set the tone, you build the excitement. That makes or breaks your case acceptance. Because if someone's first experience of you is through the internet, and it's not a general dentist referral, it's not a patient referral, so their first experience is the internet, and they have read all the reviews, they want to know, is that hype real? You know, it sounds really great, but is it really that great? So that new patient phone call has to be amazing. It sets the tone, as I said, builds the excitement, it's the energy, it's the time that your team is going to endorse you. So are there scripts? Yes. I mean, it's very easy when we start a new patient phone call and that we've identified that they're calling in for a new exam, one of the easiest things your staff can say is, you know, have you ever met Dr. Jones? And when they say no, that's an opportunity for them to say, oh my gosh, you're really going to love him, or you're really going to love her. You know, she's amazing, he's amazing. We're always looking for opportunities to endorse our doctor and build the excitement. And that happens in the first 20 seconds, just by saying, have you ever met our doctor? The new patient phone call, as far as the scripting goes, you always want to be enrolling. So you're enrolling that patient, but you're always trying to enroll the brothers and sisters, the mother. So is there anyone else in the family who would like to be seen? To take one new patient phone call and make it into two. If you ask that every time, you'll have a 15% increase in new patient exams by enrolling brothers and sisters. If they say, well, we have a 7-year-old and the dentist hasn't referred them, well, now there's the opportunity for your scheduling coordinator, whoever took the new patient phone call, to educate them. We want to see the kids at age 7 to monitor the growth and development. It's no charge, and we have a kids club. So scripting, is there anyone else in the family who would like to be seen? And then on the new patient phone call, as far as scripting goes, always trial close. Trial closing is when you say something and you wait for the response. I believe that everyone who telephones your practice is at go. But they do have obstacles, and you've got to find out what those obstacles are. So you trial close them. You say, please allow an hour for the appointment. Doctor and the treatment coordinator will do an extensive exam. And if doctor feels that Lisa's ready, we'll go ahead and get her started. Pause. You don't say anything else. That's a trial close. Mom's going to say, great, can't wait to get going. My insurance is changing. I think that she's too young. I think I'm too old. But that's how you identify those obstacles. So those are 3 or 4 pieces of scripting just at the new patient phone call that we teach. And yes, your team finds their own words to work with it, but they are always enrolling. They are always trial closing. They're always endorsing, and they're building the excitement.
Right. Yeah, and I can speak from experience. When my treatment coordinator went and we started that, immediately we started seeing 2 and 3 siblings at a time, rather than seeing that one who's 12 and the one who's 8 or 9, mom wouldn't schedule. It suddenly changed everything. You're right. It helped immensely. A question, if you don't mind me just sort of going off a little bit here, LeeAnn, is there a limit of new patients you recommend at one given time that you should allow to schedule? I found that, you know, there are parents who might have 4 or 5 kids. If you schedule that and they decide to cancel, you know, you're out a few hours of time. Or is it, hey, the more the merrier? If they're willing to schedule 5 siblings, schedule them.
I only allow a 2-hour block. So how much can I get done in a 2-hour block? So if it's just two children, I would only allow an hour and a half. But if it's 3 or more, it's going to be a 2-hour block.
Okay, so you would somehow find a way to fit those 5 kids into 2 hours.
Sure, because you're going to go ahead, most offices are going to take a pan or a scan and photos, and you can bring everybody through. The tour is going to be one tour. The meet and greet is done as a group. Briefing the doctor is done once, even though the doctor, let's say there were 5, which is pretty unusual that all 5 would come in.
Right.
So, especially if it's a family, you know, driving a long distance. So okay. You're looking at all sides of it, but 2 hours is the maximum.
Okay, great, that's helpful. The next question that I had here that I was asked about, and the one person asked a few of them that are real good. What are your best practices for a new patient exam workflow? Right, so that's sort of a vague and ambiguous question. So I can follow it up with sort of like, how would you feel? So we talked about the scripting there. Is there a best practices in terms of how we bring the patients in? Do you recommend, you know, the records taken ahead of time? Do you believe that what allows us our best chance at enrolling that patient as someone who wants to start treatment? Is there any system to it, or can we do whatever we want to do as long as we sort of follow the scripting?
Well, No, you don't get to do whatever you want to do. You can, it's your practice, but best practice is what you're asking about. Number one, you need to be able to see your new patients. The sweet spot is 3 to 5 days, no more than 2 weeks. It doesn't mean that you won't have people that will schedule out 4 weeks during the school year, but even scheduling them out 4 weeks, there's ways to bring them in sooner, which is, I can go into that in a little bit. So best practice, get them in as quickly as possible. If you're booked out more than 2 weeks solid, let's say you're at 3 and 4, people go, oh gosh, that feels so great. Actually, then you're going to look at your failure rate. It's going to be a lot higher, especially in the summertime. So the best practice is, let's say we get them in the timely manner that we want to get our patients in within that 2 weeks. And you're going to think, well, sometimes you're having to add a second treatment coordinator or a third treatment coordinator. There's scheduling ways that we do this. But when the patient comes in the door, they're greeted. We take them back for their pan photos, scan, whatever. They go back to the reception room. The treatment coordinator, she comes, she grabs her patient. She introduces herself. She always walks to the patient. She doesn't stand at the doorway and say, Glenn, I know that sounds really basic, but sit in your reception room and watch. Your staff needs to learn that they walk to their guests. Their guests they're not calling their dog, you know. My dog's name is Max, so I would stand and yell for Max. We don't do that to our patients. So they walk to their new guest, and then they always do a tour of the practice. So best practices, always do a tour. And the tour is of the people in the office, not the stuff. So it's the receptionist that we walk by and we say, you know, I know you've met Mary. It is when we go through the clinic, we're pointing out different people in the clinic. When the team walks by, they're saying hello. They know we've got a new patient here. This is a new guest in your home. She points out the doctor. Again, anything that she wants to say about the doctor that makes the doctor a person, not just an orthodontist. And then best practices begin the meet and greet. They always brief the doctor. The meet and greet is a series of questions. Looks like a casual conversation, but it's to identify obstacle, trial, close, get to the readiness to start, and then go out and brief the doctor so we can tell you exactly what you need to do when you go in that room for this family. You know, the best practices will go on to when you're asking me about financing, we can get into that being a little bit more detail.
Okay. You mentioned scanner, and since you mentioned it, do you recommend that people be scanned at the beginning so that we can show them that, or is that something that's sort of a secondary icing on the cake sort of thing? If we have a scanner, should we be scanning every new patient before we sit and talk to them?
It's not necessary, but going into, let's say you're a practice that you're scheduling out weeks in advance. We believe in a one-step exam, right? However, if I am scheduling weeks in advance, then I might do something in the opposite. I might schedule my new patient exam to come in this Friday on a non-doctor day, and I might do a scan and photos, whatever is legal in your state. So they now believe that they've started that process, and when they come back, when I can actually see them, because now I only need to have a shorter appointment when they come back for their actual exam. This is for very, very busy offices, a step that we've had to take, and it's working really well. When they come back in, my exam time is much shorter. So I can see more exams during the day. Instead of an hour for an exam, it's now 30 minutes because I already have those preliminary records and the doctor has already done the diagnosis prior to the patient coming back in. But the patient now has this emotional tie to you. So to answer your question about the scanner, some people save the scan itself to the very end and will say, we can go ahead and save you a trip and get you started today with your scan. That's one scenario. And in others, we're doing the scan up front because that's how we're holding space for that exam so they don't end up someplace else. And in other scenarios, like in, an example would be in Anil's office, Dr. Adicula's office. In his office, we save that scan for if we have a patient that is kind of waffling back and forth, we'll take them out, do a quick 2-minute scan on them, and then show them that. And a lot of times that's a tipping point. So it's really your office on what's going on, how busy you are, and where we need to use it.
Okay.
Lots of opportunity though.
I genuinely love the idea that, you know, I save that scan till the end as my start, which is
Right.
quick. It takes 2 minutes, and I've technically started the case. Contracts have been signed, money's been collected. And if I scan at the beginning, I don't have that.
Right.
Have you
So the scan became the impressions, basically.
Exactly.
We used to say, we'll save you a trip and get you started with your impressions. So
Right.
in most cases, we're saving your trip and getting you started with your scan, unless you're that office that's scheduled so far out that I need to use that to do a different type of exam.
Are any people giving pushback on the come in early to get the records? Because now it becomes a 2-visit process as opposed to 1. Are people saying, you know, I'm booked out a month, I'll keep that because my schedule's so tight, I don't want to come in twice? Is there a lot of that or not really?
No, because they don't know the difference.
Got it.
We don't say you're just going to come in and do the records. They believe that that's their first. We let them know that there's 2 appointments, and we trial close through those appointments. It's just a different new patient phone call.
Now, it's essentially what we used to do in the general dental world. You're taking records for the first one and you're doing a review of findings on the second visit.
Right, and I want to be really clear. I teach a 1-step exam. Very rarely do I do this 2-step process, very rarely.
Okay.
But it is with the larger practices, the more corporate out there. I do it more in Canada than I do it in the United States. Okay. But I do have offices right now that are taking their scanners mobile and scanning people in malls. They're opening up scanning salons. Right. So it is, things are changing.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they're changing quickly. So the next question is, what is your recommended protocol for a treatment coordinator to follow up on the pending starts or the people who are sort of on the fence or you haven't heard back from? Do you have a protocol you like?
We do. One is we gain permission before they leave to go ahead and contact them in a couple of days. And we always let them know that we're going to call them. We also ask the mother if she prefers, if email or texting are good communication for her as well. So when the patient leaves the office and we know, okay, they're going to go home and talk to their husband, then we'll say 2 days. So we're going to follow up in 2 days. If I leave a voicemail, then I'm going to send, there's a very specific email. It can't look like it's a canned email, but we send an email. We wait 3 days. We will send another email. We'll wait 5 days. We'll make a phone call. And based on what's happening in that communication going back and forth is how we follow up. We go through a series of 8 emails over about, probably a 12-week period, and phone calls in between there. The long and the short of it is we do not inactivate a patient unless they move far, far away, they go into treatment with somebody else, or they say, don't ever call me again. Okay. So if your team is saying I'm doing 3 tries or I'm doing 2 months and then I'm inactivating, that's a huge mistake. Because no today is not no forever.
Okay, excellent. One question that came about when we talked about the start with the scanner, somebody asked, could you scan at the beginning and then tell them that if they agree to treatment, you can still just say, you need the down payment to submit for Invisalign, lab appliance, IDB, or whatever, and just use that as sort of a verbal excuse to say, okay, even though we've already scanned you, once you pay this, we can submit it to wherever, and technically we've started.
Yeah, and the verbal skills is what we can do is we can go ahead and save you a trip and get you started today. We have your scan, and we can go ahead and submit that.
Okay.
So you can certainly do that.
Okay.
Or you can go ahead and place the braces, or you can put separators in. Yeah, all that good stuff. Yeah.
Do you're out there, you see a lot of treatment coordinators, you see a lot of practices. Where are we right now in terms of treatment coordinator compensation structures, bonuses? Is there anything out there you know about that you can talk about in terms of, I know it changes regionally, but one of the questions was, you've got one of my pet peeves, LeeAnn, is, and I get this asked by a lot of our members, is I've got somebody who's come to me as a treatment coordinator. She tells me she grew $1 million practice in 6 months in another location. She wants $100,000 a year. And the one side says, don't be penny wise, pound foolish if this person can really grow. The other one's, come on, I mean, I've got overhead. where the first question is, what are you seeing out there for compensation if you really want to be unique and aggressive? And number two, is it really about the TC as a person, or is it more about the systems?
Well, it's going to be both. You can have a very intelligent, well-versed TC, but she doesn't have a great system. We walk in all the door, we train them all the time. They have a 50% case acceptance, you know, it turns into 75 or 80% very, very quickly. So you do need both. As far as the compensation goes, it's really based on the area of the country. If you are in South Dakota, we might be talking $18 an hour, $20 an hour. If you are in San Francisco or New York, you might be talking $25 to $30 an hour. So it really is based on the area of the country. When we start with a practice, we always put a team, and I always meaning it's not a corporate practice, it's not already a $5 million practice that I've got 25 or 30 staff members in. So just to keep the conversation where I'm at right now. But we always believe in starting with, if you haven't had a bonus system in, start with a team one. And don't call it a bonus, call it a game. Games have a beginning and an end. And that way you can start it and stop it. And they should be paid in a month, not in 3 months. So you have a game, not a bonus, because it's hard to take a bonus away. We believe in starting with a game for the whole team when we go in. And that'll work for about a year or so. And then things as normal, they get stale, and now you got to come up with something. You got to freshen it up. So for us, an easy one is BAM. And Glenn, you might be doing that one. BAM is bare ass minimum. So bare ass minimum number of starts. Yeah. So we typically will say, okay, what is the practice averaging the last 12 months, the trailing 6 months, in the same month last year? Get that average, add 10% onto it, or whatever percentage we want to add, and that becomes BAM. So BAM might be 30 starts. And when you hit 30 starts, everybody gets $100 and $10 for every start after that. So if you wanted to do something extra for the TC, you can double BAM her. So she would get $200 and $20. Usually I start out everyone's even, and then as things start moving, I might set it up that it's double BAM for the TC. And it might be if they hit that BAM number and she hits a high case acceptance as well, she might even get an even higher amount.
Okay. So
as far as the treatment coordinator goes, we believe in every position in your office should have standards that they have to perform at, whether it's the scheduling coordinator, treatment coordinator, financial coordinator. Everybody has a standard, not a job description, but a standard, two different things.
Okay. So if I may, just for a second, to sort of go off topic just for a moment, you talked
Sure.
about bonus systems, or a game as we call it here. And obviously you talked about starts. I'm not a bonus for starts kind of guy, because one start may be a phase one start may be a surgical case. I love collections. It's something I've always been comfortable with because that's what pays my bills at the end of the month. Are there any mistakes that people typically make other than calling it a bonus that you'd say, hey, you can do any number of ways you want to do this, but please, here's some basic mistakes that people make when they're up and starting this? Any suggestions that come to mind?
So your collection game or bonus is working for you. It's not something I typically put in. And, okay. And you've done it obviously very well, and you've looked at it very well. For us, we don't want your staff looking at your patients with dollar signs in their eyes. When I set BAM, I'm using all starts, everything that was a phase one, a full treatment, a phase two, a limited. So your BAM number is much higher because it includes everything. So it's kind of all built into that.
Right.
And the other part is when I make it on collections, the assistants tend to go to the financial coordinator and the treatment coordinator and say, did we hit it? Did we hit it? Unless you've got a very well-trained team like you do, that they all get their role in it. But I try, if we produce it, we're going to collect it. Here's the other downfall in that, Glenn, is I will have a practice that will have a system like this. And I know this isn't you, so I'm being respectful here, but your practice can be declining and you're still collecting more.
Good point. Good point.
Because if you didn't, because you're always collecting what you produced 14 months ago.
Right.
So pay in fulls and all of that bump up collections. That doesn't mean the practice is growing.
No, great point. Accounts collectible or accounts receivable, whatever you want to call it, is going to have that delayed effect. So every time you open your mouth, I learn something new. I did have one question from somebody, and I'm telling people out there who have not worked with you don't realize how powerful the things you're talking about really are in day-to-day practice. And our group, as I mentioned to you earlier, we're comfortable sharing numbers. I ripped apart my case acceptance numbers after my TC went to you. And we weren't tracking it the way we could have in the past because we weren't pulling out everybody who needed a check from the GP or somebody who wasn't ready yet. But my case acceptance right now, after going to you, it's got to be 5-6 months since she went, we are at 84% of people who are ready for treatment. 84% are accepting treatment. And probably 90% of them are same-day starts. So I just tell everybody out there, whatever she says, listen to.
Well,
because I'm just saying I've been to a lot of courses and a lot of consultants and a lot of people have helped me, and nobody's moved the needle as well as you have. So thank you. Somebody else out there asked, first question right now, somebody asked, do you have a book?
That's a great question. And I should, and I don't.
Okay.
For our clients, they get the manual, the TCI, you get the full manual there. So.
Okay. And at the end of the night, before everybody leaves, I do want to give you a couple of minutes to just talk about, and just for everybody out there, for full disclosure, I don't get anything if you go to LeeAnn's courses. I'm totally impartial on this, other than the fact I think she's amazing. So at the end of the night, I'd like to give you a little bit of time to talk about where people could go from here if they're more interested in what you offer. And I'll ask you at the end of the night how you feel about cruises. There's a reason. There's a reason for that. So someone asked, if we take photos in all of our screenings, and I suspect the answer is a quick yes, that you should be taking photos in your screenings if time permits.
Yes, when the patient comes in the door and mom is finishing the paperwork, then we take photos and pan is what you usually do. Photos and whatever else you want, but there's nothing like having a photo of your child. Okay.
And you mentioned an acronym that someone asked me, and I didn't hear it, but you said TCI.
Oh, that's Treatment Coordinator Intensive. That's the course that we teach here in San Diego.
That's the one that I sent my treatment coordinator to.
I'm sorry, I apologize.
I gladly wrote the check, and that was the end of that. So next question is, what are your feelings on financial arrangement flexibility and successful internal, external marketing strategies? And I think the second half is not as important right now because we do a lot of that in our group. But in terms of flexibility of financing, how do you feel about the ability to, right? There's people who talk about soft credit checks. There are people who talk about just get people started even if it's zero down. People say start, cover your basic costs. Others say, hey, you want $1,000 down, that's your floor, keep it there. What are your thoughts on, in today's day and age, in terms of financing flexibility, going beyond treatment time, things like that?
So first of all, going beyond treatment time, you have to do that to have a high case acceptance now. You've got higher fees and shorter treatments because of technology, where we used to finish in 30 and 36 months. That doesn't happen so much anymore. It's, we're finishing in 15 months, 18 months, and you've got this high fee. So you do need to be willing to finance past treatment time. Low down payments, absolutely. No down payment. Yes, I'm willing to do somebody equal payments for 24 months, but that's not where I ever lead. You make an educated decision when you do that for somebody. And how you do that is you have your patient history form, ask for time on the job, time at the residence, marital status, age, and occupation. Those key things are going to tell you about their maturity and their stability. If you want to know about their integrity, you're going to have to run a credit report. Do I believe that you should? I don't think it's necessary. And it's a nice thing to do. I am a believer in Paul Zelke's systems, but the part of Paul Zelke's systems that I love is the way that the collection activity is handled. So let me explain, because this is really important. It'll just take a moment. When you finance somebody out for, let's say, 24 months on an 18-month treatment, if somebody's going to go delinquent on you, they're going to go delinquent in the first 4 to 6 months. So it really didn't matter that you financed them out 6 months past treatment time or 10 months past treatment time, because they went delinquent in the first 4 to 6 months. So if you've got great credit management systems in place, meaning you're beginning your collection activity at 10 days past due, obviously you're trying to maximize your auto draft. It's not required, but there's ways that we can get more people to accept auto draft. And you begin the collection activity at 10 days past due. By the time somebody is 60 days past due, you would have them on maintenance, or you would be part of solving their problem, not jumping into their nightmare. The problem that most offices have is they don't begin their collection activity until 60 days. Now somebody's 2 months behind. That's very hard for people to live paycheck to paycheck. So shame on you. You caused the problem. You were part of the problem. So yes, finance past treatment time, but begin your collection activity at 10 days past due. Have great systems in place for it. So it's more of a relationship. You're helping people. And then you can finance past treatment time. You can have lower down payments. The sweet spot is $400 to $600, and the monthly payments being under $200. Does that mean I'm telling you to go get $400 to $600 down on everyone? No. Some people are going to pay $800. Some are going to pay $300. That's all in the scripting part. Right. But yes.
So again, as we spoke about earlier, you and I, this group has a non-disclosure, so everything we talk about stays within this group. So I'm going to ask the hard question. If we're going to start 10-day collection process, so to speak, I'm taking it you're not in favor of outside collection companies like OrthoBank?
No, I'm not. Why? You have a financial coordinator. Why? She should be doing her job.
Okay.
That's her job.
How do you feel about those things like OrthoFi, the in-office slider, iPad sort of devices that allow people to pick their payment? Are you a fan of that, or do you feel they're unnecessary?
A slider is just a calculator. You don't use it as a crutch. It's just a simpler way to communicate. It's a communicator. That's all it is. Okay. It helps you communicate. So OrthoFi started with the slider, but there's lots of sliders out there right now.
Okay. Yeah, and I again, when I introduced OrthoFi way back when, I tried it in my office. We've got great systems. We've got great training. My specialty for years was teaching case acceptance. And I saw my case acceptance plummet when we started offering too many options. And when we broke it down into 3 options of how you could pay, I found my case acceptance went right back to where it was beforehand. So I agree that sometimes technology isn't necessarily, it doesn't trump communication by any chance.
That's not going to increase your case acceptance. The decision has been made in most cases long before you hit the finances, but how you discuss the finances can make or break a case.
Amen. The question that came in right now, since we're on the topic, and I figure we can let this go a bit organic if it's okay with you.
Sure. Okay.
Someone asked, so Invisalign, right, depending upon your tier, you could be anywhere from $1,000 a month to a $1,750, $1,000 to $1,750 lab bill. Patient comes in, irrespective of what you charge for Invisalign. How do you feel about somebody having a very low down payment just to get them started, and being sort of upside down for a period of time, knowing that there's a really good chance you're going to collect all that money?
Use a patient history form with time on the job, time with the residence, marital status, age, and occupation, so you can make the best decision possible. If you run credit reports, you're going to know what your risk factor is. But at least 85% of the time, that patient history form is going to help you with that. You can start them with $500 down. Some people will give them a training aligner. So they'll come back next month and they'll do their first monthly payment of $200.
Interesting.
And then, so it's called a slow start is what we call it. The patient doesn't know they're being slow started, but that way you've got a couple months, you might have 2 monthly payments before they actually get into that. So they can be bleaching and doing things like that.
Interesting. So what you're saying is they're basically paying your lab bill by the time you're ready for it.
Yes.
By taking a scan, getting a 3D model made, and then sucking down a couple of Essex and saying, here, start wearing this.
Right.
Interesting. Great idea. A question also is, and I kind of know the answer, but I want to hear you say it. How about patients giving you a hard time if they finance for 24 months and you get done in 18 months?
Well, that's your verbal skills going in, that we're financing beyond treatment time as a courtesy, and your paperwork is going to support that.
And I, in my office, and I don't know if you recommend it because I didn't get it from you, I have 5 tiers of treatment, and I make it clear to the patient what tier they are, not how long the case is going to be. So I say, oh, you're a tier 2 case. My assistant knows my TC knows what the cost is for a tier 2. And then they say, well, how long will it take? I said, I don't know, somewhere between 18 and 24 months, but don't worry about that. I'll try to get it done as quickly as I can. And I don't know if that's something that goes against the kind of verbal skills you recommend, but it's worked really well for me so far.
If it's working for you, you don't change things just for change. So if it's working, that's fine. For us, we would always say our goal is to have you completed in X amount of months. So let's say your range was 18 to 24. I would say our goal is to have you completed, or you would say it, my goal is to have you completed in 24 months. We can shave off a few months with Mother Nature's cooperation and you being an amazing patient. But my reasoning for doing that is that way at 18 months, the patient isn't asking over and over again in 19 months and 20 months, because they only hear the 18. So that's what we recommend that you say. But if something is working for you, keep working. You just move boxes.
I moved boxes?
Yeah. You were there and now you're here.
Oh, by the way, just for the record, everybody's making fun of my new Invisalign. So yes, I'm wearing plastic. And
good. Mine are in the other room.
All y'all can go jump in a lake, and that's appropriate use of all y'all. Okay, that's yeah. So great. Let me hop on to another question that I've got from somebody. Is zero down worth it?
Sure.
Okay.
Family of record, especially, a great referral source. Remember, if somebody, I didn't mean to cut you off, but if a dentist refers a patient to you and the patient doesn't start treatment with you because of finances, they say, oh, well, but, I couldn't afford it. They wanted $1,000 down. That dentist is embarrassed. Right. They feel bad. So yes, you have to look at the big picture of where your referrals come from.
Right. And I know there's 2 questions that are going to be coming, so I'm going to hit them now. Number 1, family discount recommended, and if so, is there a percentage or dollar amount you recommend?
5%.
5% of the new
total fee.
Okay. And while we're on that, when you give payment in full discounts or anything else, is it off of the total fee or off the patient portion?
It technically has to. It has to be off. The insurance company has to get the same discount that you're giving the patient.
It's funny. I used to believe that because I saw, I forget who it was, once speak about it many years ago. So I called Delta Dental and I stayed on the phone with them for 2 hours talking. I couldn't believe the answers they were giving me, and I kept asking, and I referenced her name, and she said that that's not true. She said that the percentage you give off to the patient, what you do with the patient is your business. And I said, seriously, come on, that's felony fraud. And she fought me and fought. She was fighting with me, telling me, I said, go speak to your manager. She did. Manager confirmed it, that I can give the patient whatever percentage I want off without having to offer that percentage to the insurance company. But I will say that I always write on the insurance form, as per Charles Blair, who's who it was, said just write on the insurance form, the patient got a 10% discount. Patient got a 20% discount, whatever it was in the small print. And now you've informed them, and 99 times out of 100, they will never act on it or do anything about it. And that's just, again, that's what I've done, but I'm not saying it's right. But I did spend 2 hours on the phone with an insurance company personally, who told me that whole, you have to give them off what we give off, is BS. And I'm hoping I don't go to jail. I
don't think you'll go to jail. It's if the fee was $5,000 and you took 10% off, $500 off, and they still only had $1,000 benefit, it doesn't really matter that you give them the discount. But if the fee was only $1,000, and then you were taking 500, you were taking 500 from the insurance company, but then the patient was really actually getting a discount of 10% off,
Right.
that's when you might get into that gray area.
And I agree
if you didn't use the mats. Yeah.
Right. And I think that's why they said, as opposed to general dentist, ortho, it doesn't really play that big of a role.
Right.
So the second question I'm going to ask, which I know has to be on some people's minds, is when you have a referring dentist come to your office, or a referring dentist immediate family member, or a referring dentist assistant, hygienist, front desk, how do you handle the discounts associated, if any, with those offices? Is there a certain, like, doctor free, doctor family free, assistant 30%? Is there anything you recommend in that respect?
Oh yeah, there is. So the dentist and their family, it's 100% courtesy.
Okay.
The staff, our recommendation is, it doesn't matter what the position is, whether she's an assistant in the office, a receptionist, or the hygienist.
You garbled there for about, I don't know if it was just me, but for about 5 or 10 seconds, you garbled and I couldn't hear you. So if you can go back, I heard doctor and family free. After that, free. I lost you.
Okay, so if the assistant, hygienist, or receptionist, it doesn't matter who it is, comes in, they get 50% off, and so do their children and their spouse. So we do it in a different way. We call that a professional pass. So when the family, when the assistant comes in to start treatment with you, if the fee was $5,000, we don't take $2,500 right off the top. Think of it as insurance. So it's charged out $2,500 to the patient account and $2,500 to the insurance account, professional pass insurance. Think of it that way. All right. So your financial coordinator will charge it out that way. When the assistant pays $500 down on her half, you will adjust off $500. And then if she pays $100 a month, every quarter, whatever she paid in that quarter will adjust the same amount off. But how we do that is every quarter she brings a continuation of employment signed by her employer, the dentist, just like you would with insurance, a continuation of employment. It's the same thing, a continuation of treatment that comes to you as long as they're still employed. So that way you don't take a hit on your accounts receivable, like boom, you just had $2,500 adjustment. You're only taking the adjustment little by little, and the dentist is seeing this benefit and the employee is seeing this benefit that they're getting. And if they were to leave the employer, then what we do is they revert to a fee for service. Or you can, out of the goodness of your heart, you can continue to treat them that way. Okay,
no, that's very fair. Again, the question, I figured I've moved over to the questions because you're stimulating a lot of discussion in the chat side. So the next question from Jonathan is, do you have any recommendations on how many treatment fees to have, or fee structure for treatment type or estimated treatment length? For instance, child versus adult, limited versus simple versus complex, 12, 18, 24, tier 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How many fee structures should the average ortho practice have?
Okay, I will tell you what I see out there, and then I'll tell you the smartest way to do it. But you won't do what I'm going to tell the smartest way to do it. So what I see out there is you do have, most people have a level 1, 2, 3. They keep it pretty darn simple. And a level 1, it's usually based on months, not really on the difficulty of the case is what I see. The lower fee obviously is based on the least months, and some people will have an adult fee, 3 tiers of an adult fee. Usually the range is only $200 to $300 between an adult and a child of what I'm seeing. And then you have your phase 1, you have your phase 2, and you have your limited fees. So that would be in addition to your typical comprehensive. I am seeing out there that almost everybody charges the same thing for Invisalign as they do for traditional braces, that there isn't a difference in fee any longer. I will share with you, my husband actually came up, and I will send it to you, and you can send it out to your group, what I'm going to explain. But my husband is a retired orthodontist, and he retired 6 years ago. And when we got married, I was never a consultant in his practice, but I happened to go in and watch an exam. I couldn't be because I was working for the doctor down the street. So he couldn't hire me, he had to marry me. So, so what he had is when he would finish his exam, he would take a sheet of paper and he would just check off some boxes. And those boxes were what his treatment was going to be. And each of the areas had a dollar value. So he never knew really what the fee was. He just knew he was going to get paid for everything. So his diagnosis and treatment plan, he would check that. That might be worth $200. Our records, you know, of course we did the records. Brackets on were like $600. If it was 24 months of treatment, he checked 24 months and our value there was $200 a month. And then he would check D-band, and if it had an impacted canine, he would check that. So everything had a dollar value. And handed to the treatment coordinator, she would add it up, and that was what the fee was. So every patient for us, we were paid for. If they had an impacted canine, whatever it was, we were paid for. He set his fees up that way because he said he didn't want to only get all the difficult cases in town and have to charge something that was a relatively simple case, this higher fee. You're probably all not going to use it, but I will give it to you with the instructions because it's a great way to set your fees. Even if you only use this formula once a year to set your fees for phase 1, phase 2, for your comprehensive, it's a great tool because most of you just guess. You don't know why you arrive at your fees, but we actually did know.
Yeah, no, I'm going to do it. I have 2 iPads. I'm going to link my remote from my practice program. How easy is it to make a form where all you do is just click on the iPad, it immediately shows up.
It's really cool. It is.
I mean, it's really easy. So yeah, don't challenge me, LeeAnn. I will do it. I'm telling you.
I will. I'll send you the instructions. And if you guys have any questions, you can talk to me, you can talk to my husband.
Great. You raised a point there. So many of us in this group are newer practices, less than, let's call it 10 years. Mm-hmm. There's a gentleman in the group who's very experienced, been around a number of years, and people seek him out. They travel from all over the country or his province to go find him. And so I was in that life as a general dentist, and I could set my fees wherever I wanted without question, because people were coming to me referred from all over, and I could be the most expensive guy in town and nobody argued. When you're the younger guy in town who doesn't have that reputation, you've been there less than 5 years, how do you handle it when you have a lot of people in your neighborhood who are, I saw a 24-month Herbst case not too long ago for $4,200 from an orthodontist, private orthodontist in my neighborhood. How do you handle that? Or do you just not care and, you know, damn the torpedoes, so to speak?
He gets to charge whatever he wants to charge. If somebody comes in and mom says, oh my gosh, you know, you're $1,000 more, the treatment coordinator is going to say, you know, Mrs. Jones, I can't speak for Dr. Smith's fee. I can promise you, you're not going to get better care anyplace else. You're absolutely going to love Dr. Glenn. And, you know, in your life, you are going to, there's going to be lots of sales. What we try to encourage you is there's lots of sales, you're going to buy houses, you're going to buy cars, but we try to not have you use your checkbook to be your compass when you're making healthcare decisions.
Okay.
So if she can say that with passion and conviction, and if you want to have treatment here, we would love to treat your daughter, and I can work out a financial arrangement that'll work with your budget.
Right. And so the challenge we had for a while, and I'm just speaking this out with you so others can hear it, is that we had lots of patients coming in looking to match the fee or something like that, but some wouldn't say a word. They just took the fee, went home, and we never heard from them again. And then, you know, you would check on their insurance, which I think is something I learned from you. I think check on the insurance 10 days later or 2 weeks later to see if the ortho benefit's been used, which will tell you whether or not they started somewhere else.
Right.
That was you, right? That's your, which is brilliant because you don't have to waste your time if someone's insurance benefit was used already. But I came up with one line that I use now whenever I leave the room, and if we determined ahead of time that the person where price was a large role, which again, thanks to you, we know how to do that now. I would always leave the room and say to them, before we start treatment, before you decide on who's going to treat your daughter or the money the cost of it, you have to determine who's the right person. And because if it's free and it's the wrong person, it doesn't make sense, right? So if you feel like I'm the right person to treat your daughter, Christine here will figure out a way to make it affordable. Nobody leaves this office without being able to afford it if I'm the one you want treating your daughter. And I found that by being proactive and saying that, all of a sudden, we no longer had people leaving and shopping. They just knew that they decided I was the right guy, and a lot of the people in this conference right now are the right people. And I think if they just use that one line, it sort of dovetailed really well into the stuff that you taught us.
Right.
So
it's working for you.
So other questions. What happens with a doctor who doesn't refer to your office, who's got an assistant or a front desk or somebody who comes into your office because they heard you're the best? Do you offer them the same discounts? Does it work the same way? Is it a great way to get into that office?
Yes. And you're not going to miss a meal by giving them a 50% courtesy, or you're not going to miss a meal by treating that. A lot of times in your career, you're going to have dentists that you're going to treat them, their children, their wives, and they're going to refer to somebody else. Everybody has it happen. It is what it is. And if something goes wrong, they'll come back, but just do the right thing.
Okay. So how do you handle when you're going to go negative cost-wise? Meaning, if I do brackets, it's not going to cost me that much out of my money to pocket to give it to you for free. But if I've got a $1,700 Invisalign bill, do I eat that as well? Is that just a cost of doing business, or do I actually pass that on to them?
Well, if it is a staff member, you're getting 50% of your fee. So you're covering your lab bill.
Okay, but if it's a doctor?
If it is a doctor, yes, you are going to eat the lab bill in most cases. And the good news is that you get to say what's going to best treat them. So was their heart set on Invisalign, or were they open to braces?
Okay. Do you ever
kind of maneuver people a little bit?
Do you ever bring up the concept in a very gentle way about the reason why you're giving the discount? Meaning, hey, Dr. Smith, you've been great to this office and we really appreciate your advocacy. Okay, so it's okay to bring that up. It's not taking away from the quote unquote altruism of doing it.
No, you can say, we just absolutely love your patients. We love working with you. You guys are amazing. It would be an honor and a privilege to be able to take care of you.
Awesome. Next one, real quick. What discount do you suggest applying to patients for phase 2 if they did phase 1 in your office, if at all?
Okay, so I don't discount for phase 2, but they're 2 different fees. So phase 1, let's pretend your fee is normally $5,000.
For phase 1?
No, for comprehensive. But when you put phase 1 and phase 2 together, it should be somewhere between 125% and 150% of your fee. So let's say it's 125%. So that would take it to $6,250.
Okay.
So
that makes sense.
Yeah, so just subtract whatever you paid for phase 1, and you want your phase 2 to be low enough that if they went and shopped you with other orthodontists in town, it would be a comprehensive without orthodontist, but so that would be a higher fee than your phase 2 fee. Got it.
Pigs eat well, hogs go to slaughter. You're making enough, so just keep going with it. So someone asked, Vivian asked, she had a patient asking for a 60-month payment plan the other day. I guess it would all be dependent upon how hungry you were, what other secondary components were there, right? If they had 4 children, would you be willing to maybe do that for anybody? Or is there a point at which you draw a line, LeeAnn?
I would probably want to know the story behind it. If it was a family of record, they had 3 people in the practice, they paid beautifully, and they wanted to get the other 2 going. They were twins. So would I do that? I would.
Yeah.
Would I do that for somebody who was 6 months on the job, 25 years old? No.
Right. But I have found what you just talked about. I've had families with multiple kids. I had one family with 4 kids who needed braces all at the same time. And the mom was really distraught over how much it was going to cost. And I just said, hey, we'll make it work. let's just, pay for the first one or half for the second. And when you're done, we'll just keep paying. And she became a huge advocate for our practice because she realizes that the money, although important, wasn't the driving factor, which differentiates most of our practices from what's out there.
Right.
And so, you're sometimes making an investment just in the growth of your practice by doing the right thing.
And for her, she ended up being an alpha mom for you.
Exactly. And as an aside, as I've mentioned in our group, I'm a firm believer in having a mom's council where you have a bunch of different moms meet with your TC or your marketing expert once every quarter, where you buy them lunch and get ideas about how to make your practice better. And she was on that and gave some very good feedback. So you never know, right?
Right.
So I don't see any other questions right now. There was just one more question that Vivian had asked about Invisalign for phase 2, and I suspect she's talking about the discount. But if I understand you properly, it doesn't matter what you're using to treat them. You want it to be about 125 to 150% of the fee that you would usually get when you combine the two together.
Right. So if it was an Invisalign case, you might have it be 150% versus a traditional brace is 135%.
Got it. There was another question here about combining phase 1 and 2 into a larger fee that is spread out over 4 to 5 years. Aaron, if you're there, do you mind unmuting yourself and asking the question, because it's not coming across very well in type? Are you able to do that?
Yeah, I'm here. Hey, LeeAnn. How you doing?
Hi.
I was just kind of curious. The practice that I kind of bought into was they were doing a phase 1, phase 2 combination fee at like a larger fee, maybe like 8,500, and the patients had a nice time period to kind of like pay the fees over. So while we're waiting for that transition into phase 2, they're still making payments. So I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on that, because like, is it a good idea, a bad idea? I can see problems with like patients moving away and stuff like that. So I just wanted to see what you thought.
Years ago, that came on the scene and people tried it. It didn't have the highest case acceptance. So it's not that it's bad, it's just harder to sell, because if they're going for a second opinion someplace else and someone else is saying $3,000 right now and financing that $3,000 over a couple of years, it's a harder sell. It's not a bad thing.
Right. Okay. Does that answer it okay, Aaron?
Thanks.
Okay. Great. So before we close up, and I appreciate everybody staying on here for the rest. And by the way, LeeAnn, we have 34 people still on here, which is amazing. So
Yay.
That's again, a testimony to who you are. I've spoken to LeeAnn about a couple of things. I'm trying to find a place for her in next June's Orthopreneurs meeting that's going to be here in Dallas, because I think she could really bring a lot to the table along with the other folks. Like I said, I have to find out how you feel about cruises, and I'll explain to you why afterwards. But if you don't mind telling us a little bit about, if someone finds what you're talking about here interesting, where we should, where I would go next. Is it for I know the answer, but I'm going to say it out loud for you to answer. Is it just for the TC, or is it for the doctor? Is it for financial coordinator? Is it for the assistant? Is it something I bring my whole team to? And last but not least, if I find that the group is interested and there's enough people to warrant maybe, quote unquote, buying out a class or coming on a special class, is it something you're amenable to if we were going to do it as a group? So I'll turn it back over to you.
Well, the answer is yes. Have we done that, what you just asked for groups like this? We have, and it is, the energy is amazing. It really is. So yes, I would make that work. As far as the TCI, the treatment coordinator intensive, that's for doctors, treatment coordinators. People bring their clinical staff. I have offices that send a treatment coordinator to, send a staff member to every course. I have offices that every time they hire a new staff member, they're in the course within the first few months. Part of what we're teaching is a culture, a way of thinking, as well as the systems. And so the TCI, we give you 3 months of support afterwards. We treat you like a private client, and there are no secrets. I give you absolutely everything. So the TCI is something that is the right fit for some people. For other people, they're looking for like our Office Manager Academy. That's for doctors and whoever your go-to person is, whether it's an office manager or something like that. So it's really where you are in your practice. We don't take everyone to be a private client because we're not a fit for everybody. It's really about who you are, what your goals are, what you want your life to look like, and, you know, are we the right company for you? So that's really individual. The one thing I wanted to leave you all with, because there was a lot of questions about bonuses and about systems. I mentioned it earlier. When you look at your practice, look at it by department. Create a scheduling department, create a new patient department or treatment coordinating department, create a financial department, a clinical department. If you make somebody the head of a department, they're going to stand a little bit taller, and you can look at each area of your business, just like you're a Fortune 500 company. So think of it as a department. The team members, when you hire them, they have job descriptions. The job description describes a task. You want to now create standards for each position at what that you want them to perform at. So your young practices, and this is why I'm sharing this, Glenn, is because you are young practices. Most of you are really interested in that job description. Job description might be, okay, you're going to answer the phone. You're the receptionist. You answer the phone. All right. The standard is you're going to answer the phone by the second ring. You're going to, you are the financial coordinator. You're going to post payments and charge out contracts. Your standard is you're going to keep your accounts receivable at 6.0. You're going to keep your adjustments under 9%. Your delinquency is going to be under 3%, and that's the number of patients, not the dollars, but the number of patients that are beyond 30 days. Those are standards. So that would be one of the things I would really want you to take away, is to have you look at your business that way, because you're young offices.
And just, there were a couple of questions, and I sort of want to preempt them a little bit. When you talk about standards, those are standards that we create in our practices based upon what we want. It's not like I have to have a 6% collection. I need to be where I feel I need to be, within reason, obviously, right? The standards are my standards, not a standard to the industry, so to speak.
It's kind of a blend of both, because it is to have your treatment coordinator, the performance standard should be something that is attainable, that she can hit that number, not your goal and your vision, but that's reasonable, that she should be able to perform at this level. The reason why standards work, why we put in performance standards in offices, and yes, they're negotiable, but the treatment coordinator never knows, is she doing great or is she not doing great? Does the scheduling coordinator know, is she doing well or not doing well? And then you go to do a review and you haven't been happy with her, and she doesn't even know, because she never knew where she was supposed to perform at. An assistant is supposed to see 12 to 15 patients per day. If she's only seeing 6, she's going to know that if she knows, okay, here's my performance standard, I'm only seeing 6 patients a day. She should be the one trying to get help to be able to get herself up to the 12 to 15. Agreed. Versus, yeah, so that way they can do the happy dance when they're doing great, and they can ask for help, and they know where to ask for help.
That's great.
So, yeah, that's what I would want you to kind of take back with you as well.
So what I'll do on behalf of the team, I'll follow up with you about any details about where people can contact you to go for the TCI or any other things that you do. I think we as a group have talked a great deal about wanting to collaborate to share things. And I think we could work on things like performance standards, and we could work on things like job descriptions that we don't have to sort of muddle through alone. We can develop this as a group and see if there's things we can modify a little bit. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, I think you're amazing. I met you at AAO. I sent my TC without me to your course because I had another course I was at that week. But you will see me at one of yours because, like I said, you've changed my practice. And on behalf of everybody here, I just want to say thank you very, very much just for doing what you did. And I hope we can get you into one of our other meetings. Before you go, the last question that somebody asked is, do you have a standard sheet of any kind that you can share where a starting point of what standards should be?
Sure. Yeah, I can email that over to you.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. So it's 9:04. I kept you a little bit long. You need to go out to the surf and the beach and all the things that nobody here can see off
I know.
Camera
I get to open all the windows again and look outside at the water.
Where are you coming to us from again?
San Diego.
Yeah. When you wrote SD in your email to me, I didn't think it was South Dakota.
I'm down here. We live between Portland, Oregon and San Diego. So we're down here in San Diego right now.
Nice. Well, on behalf of everybody in our group, thank you so much for your time. Everybody in the group, it is being recorded. I will save it to our YouTube channel sometime tomorrow. I'll create the class marker quiz, which if some of you haven't taken, will be a very simple true-false quiz that will allow you to print out a CE sheet for the hour of CE you're getting right now. And your team can watch it and take the test and get an hour of CE. So with that, thank you everybody for being here today. And LeeAnn, thank you so much. We'll chat soon.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Bye.